are back. I apologize for the abrupt cutoff in the last episode where the game crashed, but we are back. Hello again. Thank you for returning. This is episode 26 of KSP 101. We are going to pick immediately back up where we left off when the game crashed, returning to the KSS-3. And around the time that it crashed, we had changed this to the station designation, closed the information panel, and returned to the KSS-3. And this is about when it crashed. Now, when it did, or right before it did, in the last episode, we returned to the Space Center after making orbit after our flyby, so we could do a spacewalk around Jool, and we picked up a very interesting contract. We have to enter Jool's atmosphere and gather scientific data from Jool, which technically we already have the data since we have the data from the space around Jool. I believe that counts, but just in case, we're going to grab some of the science data while we're in the atmosphere, just to be sure, and then return to Kerbin from orbit of Jool. It's going to be very interesting, very difficult, but let's see if we can pull that off the way that we have designed this. Now, we need to disconnect from our station, which is currently in a nice 225 million meter by 221 million meter orbit, which is nice and far enough away from pole to not get pulled in, and close enough to not escape the influence of Jool. So we'll leave that station here in preparation for docking, or rendezvousing, docking, and transferring between two vessels in orbit around Jool and creating a station. So first, let's decouple the Clampatron docking port node here, and that looks good. It still has communication ability, so let's open the shield in preparation for when we return. Let's activate the lights, looking good, and that's fine where it is. We'll go on ahead and use the RCS on this vessel to pull away from it by going to docking mode, activating the RCS, and using the left trigger to pull away from it just a little bit there. And as we are pulling away, we can deactivate the RCS, go back to staging mode, and then make sure that we are still pointing retro. In fact, we need to go back into docking mode and activate our RCS and move ourselves out of line, out of the path of that station core. That way when we start our retro burn, we don't smash into it. Now, we do not have much fuel remaining on this main sail stage. We are going to have to dip into our Terra outer stages and Wolfhound stage on the return vessel, which means, let's do a quick save real quick and update that, just in case anything happens, as I always like to say, and as it did happen at the end of the last episode, but just in case, it's a good thing that we put this docking port here in case we have to make this a rescue mission. But for now, we are locked on retrograde and ready to descend into Jool's atmosphere, but we are going to do that from the opposite side so we can actually see it happen on the day side, which would be nice. Let's actually cancel that and try to do it closer to, let's see, the sun's over there. I want it to be a retro burn on the opposite side of that, so take about 35 to 40 seconds to warp over there. It's the thing about warping out to Jool and Elu and then doing any kind of warps on a like outer orbit like this around Jool. It takes a little bit of time because of the massive distances that we are covering. Like right now, I don't even want to begin to imagine just how much distance it's going to have to cover. I'm guessing it's close to about 450 million meters in distance just to warp from this end to this end. Probably much more than that, probably closer to, let's see, what's half of 220? About 110. Take that, put it on top of 450, so about 660 million meters in distance, I would say. But once we get there, we will begin to retrograde burn the periapsis down into Jool's atmosphere. And we should be arriving here in just a moment, and we will let it reorient to retrograde. Now it's going to be safe where we have such a large orbit to barely dip into Jool's atmosphere. It will grab a hold of us and bring our apoapsis down pretty, brutally, and hopefully we don't burn up as we make entry into its atmosphere. But let's use the rest of our fuel in this stage. We lost a lot of mass by getting rid of that station. Let's go ahead and stage that we have expended all the fuel on that stage. Let's also kick on the tunes. Let's go ahead and thrust away from that a little bit, and it is probably imperative that we activate the solar panels. It's a good thing we didn't lose power whenever we were time warping around like 30 or 40 days. But we have manual control thanks to our pilot, and our engines give us power. Well, at least this one does. The Terriers unfortunately do not. But if we had run out of fuel, the Wolfhound, activating it would have, or not fuel but energy, activating the Wolfhound engine would have given us a boost to our energy reserves. Now we are lowering the periapsis down to the day side of Jool, trying to push it down to its atmosphere. Let's keep an eye on the outer stages there. Something is wrong here. Looks like we only put one fuel line. We forgot to radial to that. So now we need to transfer some fuel from this engine into this one. Try to balance those back out a little bit. It's close. And we'll do the same thing here. We're going to have to do that a couple times throughout this, I would suppose. It's a shame. At least it is keeping the Wolfhound at full tank. But let's continue that burn. Bring that down close to 200,000 meters, while keeping an eye on that one tank, as unfortunate as that is. Now we could have gotten a little bit of a boost from any of these moons to help make that easier and save some Delta V. Didn't think about that, but oh well. See, now that one's taking us away, which is not good. Looks like we just ran out of fuel on that one engine, so we need to refill it a little bit again. In fact, we can double up on it a little bit in advance to try to preemptively have enough fuel to match the other one. We'll give that a shot and see how that works out. Say about like that. And then try to continue burning down into Jool. Let's keep an eye on that periapse. If we can get a way to save some Delta V, we will take it. Oh, that's not good. That's not looking good at all. Aha, okay. I wonder if there's a way that we can finagle that into getting us a little more. Aha, okay, that's good. Let's point back prograde and try to do that. Let's keep an eye on that periapsis and this periapsis. Get a little bit of an assist from Lathe and try to save some of that fuel. Bring that down. That's way too much. Let's go back to retrograde. We will deactivate the Terriers for now, and then we will put the thrust limiter on our Wolfhound down a little bit. Say down to about 10 or close to it. Let's try to bring this up to about 100, and okay, that works for now. Let's update our quick save. That's right at the edge of Jool's atmosphere. We are going to time warp until we hit Lathe. This is also going to give us a flyby of Lathe and knock that out. We may go ahead and grab some science on our way as we pass by Lathe. Oh wow, that changed a little bit, didn't it? I hope it didn't change it too much, but we'll keep going with it and see what happens. we'll just grab some science from the space around this one then. What is this, Val? Or is this Tylo? Looks like it's Tylo. And we're not going to be too close to Tylo, so we'll just go ahead and grab the science data from the space around high over Tylo. Let's grab the temperature barometric reading just now, leaving the gravity data. Let's grab that, and then grab a crew report. And we will send our dear friend Bob on an EVA to grab all that science and grab an EVA report. Hopefully, yes, there we go. Let's grab the EVA report from high over Tylo. Let's grab our crew report to free up some space. Grab the gravimetric data, grab the temperature reading, and then the barometric reading, and then get back in the vessel. And let's see what we can do now about potentially crashing into Jool. We're going to have to go back to our Wolfhound and put its thrust limiter back all the way up. Let's reactivate these Terriers, I suppose, since we have to keep an eye on the fuel in those tanks still. Let's see. Let's begin by retro burning. See what that does. Not a whole lot. Okay, let's try radio out. Again, we are keeping an eye more so on our line here at Jool, but we also do need to keep an eye on the Tylo periapse. Looks like radio out is the one that we are after. Okay, that's out of fuel. Let's cut the engines, put some more fuel back in it. That was bad. Alright, let's bring it to about 20 or so, a little above 20. Let's bring this one a little above 20. That should be good. Alright, let's continue the burn. Let's just do it until that runs out again. Keeping an eye on that more so. Set that to out. Set that to out. Bring it back in just a hair. Bring this one to just a hair. That should be fine. Let's let those burn nice and slow until that one runs out of fuel as well. We'll just go ahead and let it keep going just like that. Very slow so it doesn't nudge us off of the radio out mark too much. We'll just take our time since it's so close to being out of fuel. And once it's out, we will then take what fuel is left in that and then eject those, boost away from them, and try to get this corrected now. Alright, there's our periapse. Let's highlight it. It's just above the atmosphere. That's good. Now we can radio in nice and carefully at a very limited thrust amount. Let's get a good view of Jool by focusing on it, zooming in on the periapse. Let's bring it down to about, say, 195,000. That should be relatively safe, right? We'll do that nice and smooth. Grab some of this tea to help my throat and voice a little bit. That's good. A little bit of product placement, free of charge for Bywater. I really like their super tea. It's pretty good. You should try it out. I definitely recommend it. Okay, anyways. Let's put the thrust limiter back up on that Wolfhound and quick save and prepare to do something potentially fatal by dropping into Jool's atmosphere. Alright, let's go back to our map view and let's time warp until we're just a little before that periapse. Making sure we're coming in from the correct side as we leave Tylo. We will be approaching Lathe, and hopefully it doesn't grab a hold of us and throw that off. Hopefully we will fly right by it, but we'll find out. Let's keep a very close eye on that. Okay, we barely missed Lathe, that's good. And we are approaching Jool. Kind of terrifying, to be honest. I believe it is safe to go ahead and retract our solar panels and space around Jool. Let's also make sure to point retrograde, because a lot of this stuff may burn up in the atmosphere. We don't want that. Let's go ahead and log our gravity data near Jool. Let's log our barometric pressure reading near Jool. Time is of the essence. We need to work quick and grab the temperature log now, and then we will grab the crew report. Now, I'm honestly a little afraid to send our scientist out here and do this where we are so close to Jool it might be able to grab our scientist, but we will find out. Let's quick save before we do this though. Alright, Bob, you are up. Godspeed, my friend. Let's see if he is moving at all. No, okay, so let's very quickly get this over with. Grab our EVA report, grab our crew report from the pod, grab our barometric reading, then we will grab the temperature reading. He isn't moving an inch, that's good. We're going to also try to do something equally crazy, which is grabbing the EVA report from Jool's upper atmosphere as we get closer. We'll be prepared to EVA Bob and hope he doesn't die the closer we get to Jool's atmosphere. We've got all that. Let's update our quick save, and then let's time warp closer to the 200,000 altitude. Once it's nice and close, we'll back off and bring it in nice and slow. 40, 30, 20. Alright, we'll stop it there and bring it in the old-fashioned way from here. Make sure Bob isn't going to go floating off, as we are now very close to Jool's atmosphere. Let's go ahead and make sure that his menu is open and ready to get this EVA report very quickly. We saw just how dangerous it could be at Eve. We need to lower him down a little bit just in case too. And 6, 5, 4, 3, we should see a bit of a nudge on the camera. 2, once it hits under 200,000. 1,000, 1,500, now it's at 1,000, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's grab that EVA report and get back in here, and let's grab our crew report and the rest of our science very quickly while we can. And in order of precedence, let's try to grab this and see if it will give us, nope, okay, let's go to the barometric then, and then we very quickly just need to grab the temperature reading, and we are now waiting to see if we gain altitude. See, it is pulling us down, but not too bad. That's good. We are not burning up. We are still losing altitude, though. We are starting to gain some heat, though. And we are starting to raise back up. Okay, we are safe. We have entered the atmosphere. Good, that knocks that out. We'll just wait until we leave the atmosphere before we hop out and grab the data. And then we will try to make our way back home. Let's make sure that we are still pointing retrograde. And looks like we're not going to burn up now, but I'm still not going to take that chance. Let's go ahead and time warp until we are out of this atmosphere. Alright, we are out. Now, let's get our friend Bob out here to get that science. Start by grabbing that crew report, and then grabbing the barometric reading, and then grab the temperature reading. That'll wrap that up. We can get Bob back in there nice and safe and sound. And let's check our accomplishments out. Talk about coming in hot. Tell me about it. Alright, we have flown by Tylo. We have escaped the gravitational influence of Jool somehow. Escaped the gravitational influence of Tylo, entered the atmosphere, or entered atmospheric flight, and entered suborbital space flight above Jool. Very good. Now we need to plot our return to Kerbin. Say for now, best thing we can do is find out where Kerbin is, and we need to get out of the Jool system as quickly as possible. Let's see, where is Kerbin? it's about where it needs to be, honestly. Let's go ahead and set it as our target, and then we will put ourselves back to prograde, and we'll just go ahead and extend our apoapsis out and leave the Jool system right now. Keeping an eye on our fuel resource menu. Once we leave the Jool system sphere of influence, then we will go ahead and time warp our way out and wait for the appropriate moment to make our way back home, hopefully. That should be close to leaving Jool's sphere of influence. There we go. Let's go ahead and quick save again, just to update that. And time warp out of Jool's sphere of influence, and hopefully not smash into any moons. Looks like they are all out of the way. That's good. We are leaving. Let's refocus on our vessel. Wow, it's actually trying to wrap us back around the Tylo. Really? Okay, let's cancel that then. Go back to prograde. Let's increase it just a wee bit more so we don't have to worry about that. Keep doing it until that stops. Because we don't... Okay, that'll work. Let's just get on out of here now. So we don't want to make our way back into that sphere of influence. We want to make ourselves come back home safely. But we do need to leave Jool's sphere of influence. Looks like we're going to miss our first pass at coming back to Kerbin. We are barely going to reach escape velocity though. Kind of worried if we're actually going to be able to leave Jool. Looks like we are going to be able to for a time. Just waiting on that. Okay, now we just have to wait for Kerbin to come back around. Let's check our ascending node. We can go ahead and warp over to it and correct it with an anti-normal burn. Hopefully Kerbin hasn't completely wrapped back around by then. There's a good chance it will though. If it does, we will cancel the time warp and take our chances and begin our retro burn. But we're waiting for Kerbin to wrap back around to about there. And that's when we're going to do the retro burn. And it's looking like it's going to make it back around before we hit that ascending node, so let's go ahead and set this to retrograde in advance. How much delta V do we have? 4100? That should be plenty. Hopefully. It is very quickly approaching the point where it needs to be. We'll just hit that so it cancels the time warp. We'll just take manual control. Preparing to hit square to cancel it as soon as Kerbin hits the edge of its orbit. Right about there. Looks like that's lined up right where it needs to be. So let's begin to retro burn. And hope for the best. Hopefully we should have enough fuel to make it back though. We might have to do a little bit of a course correction along the way, but we'll find out. That was a little bit of a gravitational assist that we could have gained from Jool trying to make it back, but it would have made things a little more complicated, I believe. So we'll just keep on retro burning. Just trying to reduce that periapse down to Kerbin's 13.3 million. Looks like it's still not entirely lined up with us though, is it? But we'll just take it for what it is and see what we can do. I believe we are good. So I'll put the focus on Kerbin, highlighting Kerbin's line and focusing B. Yeah, it is a little off, isn't it? I'll be damned. Okay, well, it's not too far off. Let's just keep burning. Our main focus is making sure that we have enough to at least get down to Kerbin's orbital line with our periapsis. From there, we can make the adjustments relatively easily. It's decreasing at a fair rate of speed though. I think we should be okay. And it's honestly not too much off. It's like 1.4, 1.3, that's fine. Should still be close enough to at least see our encounter line and nodes. We're close to under half a tank now, but it will require more fuel the lower that gets. I think we should be able to pull it off though. We didn't plan to enter Jool's atmosphere and have to do everything that we just did, but this is why we over-engineer, and hopefully we over-engineered enough for all of you watching to be able to pull this off. We are now crossing its line. Let's highlight that separation node, bring it on in, get it to where it's going to touch that one, and cut the engine off and slowly bring it in. Okay, that would have been an encounter, so in order to make sure it is still an encounter, we'll cut off there, point ourselves anti-normal in preparation to correct the ascending node. Once we are at anti-normal, we will go ahead and warp over to it, which will take about 1.5 minutes or so, I want to say. Get a little bit more T action here. That really is helping my throat out quite a bit. Okay, so after we reach the ascending node, we'll bring that down and correct it down to 0, and we should pretty much have our encounter at that point. If not, we can correct it. We should have about maybe 1800 delta V. Okay, 2200. It's plenty. It's more than enough. We're going to be coming in at a pretty hot speed though. That might be a problem, but we will find out. The ablator is going to really get tested, and if the G-forces were enabled in the options right now, our Kerbals would be turned to jelly if they came in at the speed that we would be approaching from, directly into the atmosphere under, or between 35,000 meters and 40,000 meters as we normally do. But we'll get it done. We always do. Okay, so we're about 20 seconds out from that ascending node. Let's also make sure that the throttle limiter is all the way up on that Wolfhound, looking good. Make sure also in advance that these are all drogue chutes going off here, looking good. And then there's our main 2 radials. So now we're just several seconds away from the ascending node. Let's go ahead and highlight it. Let's also highlight the descending node and zoom back out. And let's get ready to do this burn. We're looking good. Let's do it. Let's bring this down to 0. Keep going until that descending node is right over top of that. Looking good. Alright, now we can refocus on Kerbin. Zoom in to get a better view of that closest approach. Now let's retro burn from here. Oh boy, we forgot to extend the solar panels again. We're very fortunate that this is a manned mission, because if this was a probe, we would have lost power. Maybe. Does seem to hold power pretty well. Alright, let's continue till we get our encounter, and then zoom in on Kerbin. Highlight that periapse. Looks like we are coming in on the correct side of Kerbin. That's good. That would have been an encounter with Minimus. We don't want that. We don't want one with the Mun either. Ooh, okay. Now let's point back prograde. Put the thrust limiter on this engine down a little bit. 2 should be okay. Let's re-extend that. We need to point back retrograde and reduce that limiter even more. We're so far out that even the slightest bit of thrust affects it so much. Alright, let's try this again. Let's bring this down. Very good. Nice and easy to control there. 37, we'll take it. Let's go ahead and save, update our quick save, and then with that highlighted so we can see if it's affected, let's manually time warp a little bit once. Didn't really affect it much. Okay, good. Now let's warp to the edge of Minmus's orbit. Make sure we don't happen to just make contact with it out of nowhere. Looks like we should clear it though, even if it is right over top of us, but really it's the mun you gotta worry about. See, it's already wanting to make contact after passing through Kerbin. Okay, so we're about another minute and a half to go to warp to the Kerbin system. And we'll just enjoy the view on the way as we have already passed Jool. That's good. I was worried about being grabbed back up by Jool. I think we already passed that a while back though. See, Moho's gonna be out of the way, or not Moho but Drez. Duna's gonna be out of the way, I would say. I would hope. Just all that speed that we are gaining on our way. But we're gonna pass the periaps and begin to slow down a little bit before we make that encounter. That's good, at least. We'll lose a little bit of speed. The ungodly amount of speed that we're gonna have once we reach the periaps. Not sure what that speed will be relative to Kerbin though, but let's actually zoom back in on Kerbin and try to figure that out. Let's see. It's actually grabbing a hold of it enough to wrap it around and make it push this way, so the gravitational influence on it. See, we are approaching it on the periaps, which doesn't make it any better. We're still approaching it, picking up speed. We're doing it. Okay, it's way over there. We're fine. Okay. It's good to see such a strong connection from Kerbin to Jool to even Duna all the way out there. It's very good. All these points of contact in our relay network shouldn't have too much problem at all. Unless the sun crosses our path, or in this case Kerbal. Okay, we should be able to see Kerbin on our approach towards it now. Wherever that may be. Where'd you go, Kerbin? There you are. Alright, let's zoom in. Check out where Minmus is. Way over there. Cool. Alright, so now let's try to time warp to the edge of the mun and its orbit. Make sure that we're not going to make contact with it. Nope, it's moving nice and slow on the other side, waiting on us. Alright, so let's deactivate our network lines a little bit here so we can see what's going on. Try to, alright, let's get rid of this too. Try to zoom in a little, or time warp a little closer to Kerbin. That might be a little too close. Let's cancel that. We want it to be close to the line of the station's orbit. Now we have something to go by. Because once we hit that, it'll be very close to the edge of the atmosphere. Looking good. Let's make sure we are pointing retro. Oh wow, we are coming in really hot. Let's start burning. Put that thrust limiter back up real quick. Try to burn off as much speed as quickly as possible before we hit the atmosphere so we can get rid of that. Let's retract these solar panels. Oh boy, we are coming in hot. That might blow up and kill us. We need to get rid of that very quickly. Say at about 65,000 meters, we will cut the engine, get rid of that. Oh boy, let's try to go to docking mode and move away from that before it comes back and hits us maybe. Okay, now we begin praying to the Kraken that we do not explode or burn up all of our ablative protection, and that we are able to slow down enough as we wrap around the atmosphere, hopefully slowing down enough to be caught by Kerbin. Oh man, that's hot. We are picking up G's really quick. The closer we get to that periapsis. Once we hit the periapsis, we will be at full G-force, or at least the full amount of G-force that we are going to feel for now, probably. See, we should at least be captured by a Kerbin. That's good. We can make another pass around. And we have been captured by Kerbin. That's good. Whew, okay, I think we are going to be able to land on our first pass here. Almost halfway through our ablator. Oh, that's rough. Oh, that's rough. Hopefully it's going to be enough to capture us and make us land. Hopefully we don't escape the atmosphere and come back for round 2. We are gaining altitude at the moment, waiting to lose speed. We continue to burn through our ablative protection. Still too much speed. We may end up escaping the atmosphere. I guess we'll find out though. Just keeping an eye on that ablative protection too. We're about halfway burnt through it. Let's go back, go to our docking mode, activate our RCS, and begin to thrust with our RCS thrusters to try to reduce speed some more. Let's see what that does for us. Well, looks like we're coming back for a second pass, folks. Let's take a look at where we are. And since that is the case, we'll just go ahead and time warp until we hit 70,000 meters on our ship's altitude. Once we do, we'll deactivate the time warp and then go full time warp back around again. How's that periapsis looking? The 27,000, I think that will be just fine, but once we hit the apoapsis, let's deactivate our time warp and try to burn up some of this monopropellant and see what happens. 49, 48, 47. We don't want to come in at too much of a eccentric angle though, but we'll check it out after we burn through a little bit of it. See what we're looking at. We brought it down about 10,000. I would like to land on the day side so we can see a landing this time, which we rarely get to do in this series, it seems like. So let's just keep doing that until we burn through a good amount of this RCS. We're lucky that we survived that last pass that took away half our ablative protecting. Let's try to get rid of the other half then, with a crazy angle of descent. We have time left in the episode to do some crazy crap anyways. Let's do it. 22 minutes. Alright, we're down below 30. 29. 28. 27. Let's check out our line now. It's close to being on the day side. Let's keep burning. Maybe we'll even hit a new biome like we did in the last one if we're lucky enough. We're coming in at an angle too. That's interesting. Well, kind of an angle, but not at the same time, if that makes any sense. Alright, now we are dipping down close to 20 on our monopropellant. We're almost done burning through. By the time we've burnt up all this monopropellant fuel, let's say we should have a daytime ascent. As dangerous as it might be. Hopefully it's a good enough angle to where we don't die after surviving that last one. I'm gonna have to deactivate my mic for a moment. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, folks. I'm back. Let's continue to burn through the rest of that RCS now. Shouldn't take no more than about 15 seconds. Then we'll make our descent and return back home from Jool. Try to wrap this up, maybe make it a little bit of an early episode, I suppose. And 3, 2, and 1, 0. And we are now out of RCS. Let's go ahead and time warp down to the atmosphere, or the Kármán line. Let it reorient back to the surface. Let's go back to staging mode and rotate our vessel. We can actually rotate it down this way and get a nice view as we are on our way in. We haven't done that in a while. Let's take a look. Oh look, land. Let's go ahead and time warp. Check out the view on our way in. Once that burn is done, we'll deactivate the warp. So you can see there. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue to time warp down. Waiting. These drogues not too early, not too late. Looks like we might land in the highlands or the mountains. Activate those drogues. What is that over there that I spy with my very eye? Something sparkly over there on the mountainside. I wonder what that is. Alright, let's time warp down and prepare to activate the main radials. Get a good view here. Activate that. Reactivate control of the time warp. Once we get close, I'll deactivate it right about now. Coming in kind of hot, we're going to lose that, but it's okay. I'm curious, what was that we saw sparkling over there off in the distance? I think it was over there. I can still kind of see it. Let's zoom out and check out what that is. Try to get a closer view of it. What is that? Oh, it's a crystal. One of the little geodes that you can scan with a rover arm. That's pretty cool. A little better view of it there, kind of. Alright, let's wrap this up, shall we? Now that we have made it home from kind of burning a little through Jool's atmosphere and our mission out there. Let's see if there's any data we can get from out here in the mountains for the first time. Let's grab the gravity data from the mountains, then we will grab... Oh, okay, so it's not our first time, but it is for the gravimetric pressure reader. Can't get any from the barometric reader. What about the seismic? Okay, there's a little bit there. I guess that means we won't get any crew report data. Oh, a little bit. Must have sent a probe last time. Let's get Bob out here to grab an EVA report and a surface sample then, if we can. Okay, so can't grab an EVA report. I guess we have sent a Kerbal out here. What about a surface sample? A little bit. We'll take it. And we will check our mission log. And as soon as we recover this, that'll take care of both of those and wrap those up. So let's go ahead and do that. And then find out what we're going to be doing next. We still have 15 minutes left on the clock. We may go ahead and build the vessel that we're going to be using in the next episode. Gained quite a bit of science there. And not much on the part value since we landed a fair amount away from the KSC. But we did advance Valentina to level 5. That maxes out all of our Kerbals. I think it's time that we hire some new ones on. Completed those contracts. And let's check our accomplishments out. We have returned from a flyby of Tylo and Jool, orbit of Jool, first scientific data from Jool, and first scientific data from Tylo. And that should wrap up both those contracts. Very good. Now let's go down here to our tech tree and spin this science. We may be able to wrap up our tech tree. Let's get those Rapier engines, and let's go ahead and then get the can get one or the other of these. I believe it will be more prudent to grab the experimental aerodynamics. Now we just need another couple hundred for that and another 1,000 for that, and that'll wrap up the tech tree. Let's go to our contracts and see what we have in store for ourselves next. Bring a Tylo stone back with you. We're not going to Tylo just yet though. Well, I suppose we are. Orbit Tylo and return to Kerbin from orbit of Tylo. Well, we can go ahead and dock up with our station that's in orbit of Jool, completing a rendezvous and docking and transfer into space around Jool, and then bring that station into orbit of Tylo, disengage or undock, and then rendezvous back up with it in orbit of Tylo, dock back up, transfer between two vessels, and knock that out around Tylo as well, and then make our way home from Tylo and complete that, and then move on from there. So let's go ahead and take that and see how much time we have for the Tylo stone. 40 years. Okay, so it takes a few years takes several years almost to make it out to Jool and back. So we should be able to knock that out depending on what kind of contract we get after we complete the current one. Let's go ahead and take it. It really won't cost us too much if we decline it, if we have to. So we'll also take this other one for Tylo. Not seeing anything else. A rover arm. We're gonna get to those one day, but right now we're just focusing on what we can do with manned missions. Looks like that's all we can take there. So now we just have to prepare a vessel that can dock up at that station, then take it into orbit around Tylo, drop it off, and then rendezvous back up with it again, dock back up again, and then return back from Jool, which the vessel that we just created is pretty ideal for that. All we have to do is just get rid of the station that's attached to it. Maybe add a little bit more fuel to it, not sure. Let's take a look at it real fast. So we have 12 minutes to burn through. This might be a very quick and easy build, just refitting this vessel into the first J1 series vessel. Alright, let's open that KSS-3 back up and see what we have to work with. It's going to have less mass. Where'd it go? KSS-3, there you are. First things first, let's go up here and set the route. First, we'll set the route part to the docking port, and then the actual route will be the capsule. And then we will go back to our move tool, grab this, remove it, and we can get rid of these since they won't be strutting to anything. And we can take this and replace it with our shielded docking port, making sure that it is set to grandparent port. We forgot some mystery goo. Let's remember to go ahead and add that. We'll place that right about here above the solar panels, set to radial 2, and auto strut those to grandparent port, moving those into the command pod a little bit like so. That's better. Let's go ahead and rename this to our first J1 series craft. We'll save it. Now what else do we need to do? We need to update the strutting. We'll begin by grabbing these, making sure to go back to the place tool to do that, and we'll place those about there. Let's grab the ones on the center on the outer tanks and strut those right beneath the solar panels. That'll work. And let's grab the ones on the outer part of the fuel tanks, and we'll just place those in between those struts. That'll be good. That way it's not interfering with our command pod too much. Alright, let's save our progress and then check our weight out. Let's see. We know that this stage is going to be fine based on the construction of the KSS3, so we don't have to check that, but let's check it anyways. So remove that, go to our engineering report. So that pushes 37 tons, those push 6 each, so that's 12 plus 37, 49. That's at 46, very good. Aha, so that does bring up something that we forgot last time. It caused a lot of problems. We need to set this fuel line to radial 2 and fix that. And now we don't have to worry about that. Looks like we also need to do the same thing to this strut down here. So let's go ahead and fix that. Zoom into the fuel tank so we can get a good view. Try to find the center here and place it. Okay, so that fixes our strutting and our fuel line. It looks like we still have one more strut to fix though. Let's do that real quick. Place that directly beneath those. Nice and in line with the center. And then we will save our progress on that vessel. Looking good. I'm not sure there was anything else left that we needed to fix on this. The mass is still okay. Let's go back to radial 1 and put this back on. Now without the station on top, it is going to have more delta V for all of these stages down here as well. Looks like we do need to bring this back down beneath those engines. Recondense it, looking good. The rest of the staging looks good still. Now let's try to figure that out. It was enough to get us there, it's going to have even more delta V to get us there this time. Once we get there, it'll have more delta V left on the outer stages. Maybe instead of 400 or less, it'll have close to 600 or 800 for these 2 remaining outer stages. And then plenty for this to help it make its rendezvous with the station. And then we'll use the remainder of that once we're docked to the station to bring it into Tylo. Might have to start using some of these stages for that. Seems like we may need a bit more delta V, but we still had a good bit left on the Wolfhound, and we fixed these to where they're going to operate a little more efficiently and proficiently. I think it should be okay. Still kind of worried about the delta V though, but if we have to, we can make it a rescue mission. So it is going to have to rendezvous back up around that station once we get it to Tylo and undock. But we'll already be in orbit of Tylo and can save ourselves a good bit of hassle instead of taking it into a solar orbit from Jool to make it back to Kerbin. We can just use the orbit from Tylo for the transfer back to Kerbin, which might save us some delta V. I think we'll just go with it like this. Looks like it should be okay. Guess we'll find out. Yeah, we'll just take it for what it is now. I don't know. Still kind of feel like adding a little more, like doubling up and asparagus staging this radially 4 instead of radial 2, but I don't know. Need to think on that. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to just copy that and rotate it over to where it's nice and even with the other outer 2 stages, or at least relatively close to being even. Place that there. I forgot to radial 2 it. Whoops. Let's grab it again, and then radial 2. See what that looks like. Looks good. Looks nice and inline. We just need to adjust the strutting a little bit. It looks like. So we'll just do that real fast. Let's grab the struts here and go back up. set it right beneath the engine, set it to radial 4, and then put that back to the center of the adapter there. Okay, and we'll just grab these. Okay, so that's radial 2. We'll just do it from the structural part up to the same location as the other ones on the other sides. And let's see what that looks like. Looks good. Looks fine. Only question is, what about the mass of that central stage? In order to do that, we'd have to disconnect all these. Still had plenty of space for the mass, because the mainsail does push 1500, and that should only add about maybe 12 tons. We'll test it out. We have about 4 minutes left anyways. We just need to make sure that these are asparagus staged. So let's grab these fuel lines, take them out to about here, and then put them there. We also do need to strut those all together. So let's go to our structural parts, grab our struts, put 2 up here, and then 2 at the bottom, and then do the same thing to the other 2 outer tanks, and then we'll test it out after we make sure the staging is proper. That should provide plenty of extra delta V to complete this, just in case. Never hurts to over-engineer, as I always like to point out. Okay, that didn't stick. We need to make sure it does. And after we get that where it needs to be, if it'll cooperate, there we go. Let's put the last 2 up here. It's a little high, but that's fine. And then we need to check the staging. Down here, need to make sure that those go off first still, good. Make sure that those go off after that, good. Let's pull this decoupler down, and then pull this engine down above that decoupler. And then we need to check the asparagus staging of our new tanks up here. Make sure that those go off first, good. And then those will go off. That will decouple into our drogue chutes and then our main chutes. Looking good. Now we can test it out. We can check the mass of that central stage there after we eject those outer stages. Let's do a test. Let's put a new pilot in. Let's go to our astronaut complex. Okay, Jebediah still needs to level up a little bit, so let's get Bill out of there, let's get Bob out of there, let's save the craft, and then we will launch it from the Mun, since that is where we are going to be launching it from, to do this test. I mean, since that's where we're going to be launching it from to go to Jool and Tylo in the next mission in the next episode. Once that loads up, we will test this vessel out. First thing we'll do is get it started on its way. That'll check for max thrust stability. So we are SAS locked in at max thrust. Once it hits 50, turn it over. Once it hits 90 degrees, we'll back off. Nice and in line with that horizon line. And let's go ahead and cut those off. Kick the first 2 stages, make sure that works properly still. Let's boost away from those. And let's check our mass now. We are at 301 tons. We are able to push 450. So that's good. Let's begin to continue halfway, circularizing around the Mun. Remember, those mainsails push 150, so that's 450. We definitely have enough to push what we have. We're going to have more delta V because of that. Did add a little more weight, probably about as much as the station core that we had, but now it's all fuel. Let's go ahead and get rid of those stages now. Boost away from those a little bit. Now this is where it's really important. We need to make sure that it's no more than 150 tons now. Okay, so it's 127. So that's good. We still have a decent amount of delta V in that stage, but we now have way more from asparagus staging and adding 2 more tanks to that. Let's go to our apoapsis and circularize so we can test that out now. Make sure that we are pointing prograde in advance. One thing that may present a slight bit of a problem is not having enough reaction control wheels up here added to these, but we do have that larger reaction control wheel, so it may be okay. Let's see how quick it moves. It's realigning fairly quick enough, but we aren't rid of that central stage just yet to really know for sure how that upper stage is going to be. Can't really see anything, don't have any lights, but that's okay. We have lights on the station core. Let's go ahead and circularize now that we're close enough to the prograde mark. Good enough. Let's kick that stage. Boost away from it a little bit. Now it's time warp to the day side so we can get a good look at our vessel. Yeah, it's moving at a pretty decent rate of speed. Without all the reaction wheels, I guess that one large one is fine. Let's check our mass. Our mass is 57 tons. We just burnt a little bit off, but not much. So 57. We have 6, 12, 18, 24 plus 37. What would that be? 24 plus 37, 51. We have the ability to push, say, 37 plus 12. What is it? 24? Yeah, that's 61. Okay. So that's just enough to be able to push that 57 with a decent thrust to weight ratio. I believe that should be okay. There should be another menu to tell us that, but I can't remember how to activate it. There it is. Okay. Thrust to weight is very good on those stages there. Seems fine to me. Let's deactivate that menu. Alright, there we go. And then close that up. See how we do on re-entry. But it should be fine, just like it was last time. We just need to make sure our asparagus staging is correct as well. Let's go ahead and warp back around to this side. Wanting retrograde once we get there. We'll just stop it there since it's already at retrograde almost. And that'll put us on the day side on our descent for the test. We'll go ahead and kick the first two. Looking good. Let's bring that variaps down now. So that's at about 35 to 40,000. We'll kick it off. Okay, close enough. Let's get rid of those stages. And time warp until it cuts off. Right above the atmosphere. Let it reorient itself back to retrograde. Make sure it's set to surface. Let's kill off some of that speed until we start to burn at about maybe 55 to 60,000 meters, I'd say. Say it's a successful test. Nice and stable. Let's get rid of that now. Time warp. I believe we're going to be in the clear of it anyways. speed to be able to make the descent good. And I've deactivated control over the time warp so I can actually stage. I'm going to prepare to activate the drogues here shortly. Let's go ahead and activate those. And then activate the main radial chutes. We'll just let that go on down now. And we're still coming down above 10 meters per second, which means when we land, that heat shield is still going to act as a buffer and explode, but we'll be okay. Let's go ahead and deactivate the time warp right about now. And that worked out fine just like last time, even with the added tonnage because of the mystery goo and the docking port. We could put on maybe a couple more radials here, but that wouldn't help as much as putting two main larger radial chutes on the side here somewhere. Let's revert the flight, since it was a test, back to the vehicle assembly and the VAB. We'll add a couple parachutes to it and then call it quits there. Since we are over the hour mark now. Now that that's loaded back up, let's just hop back up here real fast. Find a good spot to add some more parachutes. Don't really have to, but I'd rather be safe about it. We'll put, say, radial to some right beneath those drogues on this side. Rotate over and place them about the same on the other side. We'll auto strut those to grandparent part. And after we do that, we need to bring them into the command pod a little bit, like so. And we just need to check the staging on those and it'll be all set and ready to go. Let's go up here and find those. Looks like they are staged appropriately. Save the craft. I do want to make sure that that's going to work properly though. Let's do one last test. Jebediah is the only one in there. Good. Let's launch it from the launch pad. It's not going to be aerodynamic or anything because of the lack of nose cones, and it's not supposed to be since it's going to be launched from the MUN. But it'll be good for a test real quick. We're just going to get it up to a nice high altitude and very quickly stage away all that stuff and test the command pod's descent speed with the 4 added radial parachutes. And then that'll be the last of our tests in this episode, preparing us to go back to Jool and Tylo. Amazingly, this thing actually should be rated for atmospheric flight with enough thrust to weight ratio, but we'll find out. Oh yeah, plenty of thrust to weight on that launch stage. Just get it up to about 100, and go to the left towards 270 instead of to the right towards 90. This also says a lot about its stability, where it's still able to launch like this in atmosphere. We're going to pick up some speed going sideways. Once we hit that 270, we're going to pretty much consider it a launch abort test with a rapid disassembly by rapidly decoupling through all these stages. Let's go ahead and begin to do that now. Cut those off, decouple those, and then we'll decouple the central stage next. We'll decouple these asparagus stages. It's going to get a little messy here in a second. There we go. Now, let's try to remain calm as we try to point retrograde. Let's activate the RCS to help out with that. Let's try to docking mode and boost over a little bit. we're clear of that, we'll activate the parachutes. We might have to go ahead and do it now, though. Alright, let's go back to staging mode. Hopefully that'll move that out of our way just a little bit. Come on, get off of our vessel. It doesn't want to go. Okay, there we go. Shake it loose a little better. Alright. Do some fireworks to end the episode. Quite the bit of debris there. And to think they actually test rockets like that in real life, wasting so many resources. Understandably, though. Alright, let's time warp down a little bit. And activate this new shoots. Wow, still around 10 meters per second, you say? Huh. Did that destroy some of the parachutes or something? They're just not there. I see what happened. There's a bug where sometimes it'll do the previously autosave vessel instead of the new one. And that's why those chutes weren't on the command pod. So we have to do it again. Extending our episode even further. Alright. Save the craft. Go back up, make sure they're there. They're not. We just saved over top of it. That's not good. We'll just have to do it again then. Let's do that one more time. Copy it again. Make sure that that's staged properly once we place those. Looking good. Now we're going to do this in a way that won't allow that to happen again. Let's go back to the Space Center instead, and we'll just launch it directly from the Launchpad menu. Hopefully that'll take care of that problem. Launchpad. Let's go find our first J1 rated vessel, get rid of our engineer and scientist, and launch it from the Launchpad. And before we take off this time, let's make sure it's actually got the chutes on it, so we don't have to deal with this problem again. Again, entirely unnecessary. The heat shield will act as a buff. It would still land okay, but I'd rather try to recover the heat shield if possible. It's only a few $100, but still. Alright, let's take a look at that and make sure those are on there. Okay, they are. Alright, let's do this. Activate time warp a little bit, just to get it moving a little quicker here. Try to wrap this up. Okay, let's bring that back down to ×1 speed. Let's pick up a little more speed here. Cut the engines. We'll do this a little more smoothly this time. Damage it too much, that's good. I got rid of the fuel line though, so I have to cut those now. And activate the thrusters, move away from those. Stage, activate the thrusters, get away from that. I'll just go ahead and stage while those are still on. That'll be fun to watch. It'll be dangerous with those, but it'll be okay. It's just wait, try to push that away. That one now and try to push it off of us. It's acting like I did last time when I activated the directions. And then set up the retro, activate our RCS to try to move that away from us. Ooh, did we lose the docking port or something? Didn't lose the docking port, not sure what we lost just now. Still have the parachutes, primarily what we're testing. Hey, fireworks. Oh, the frame rate loss. Okay. That's enough of the fireworks. Let's try to test the chutes now, but before we do, I want to know what we lost. Not seeing anything. I guess it was something on the outer stages. Oh well. Let's activate those chutes now. So there's all 6 of those like there were supposed to be. Let's activate the time warp. Get a good view on our way down. 5 meters per second or so, that's more like it. Oh, we lost the heat shield, that's what it was. The whole thing we were actually testing this to save. Huh, good figure. Well, irrelevant. We know that it won't be lost when we're only moving down at about 5 meters per second, so I'd call that a success. Let's go ahead and revert that back to the VAB. And call it quits. We have the vessel that we need for the next mission, which, just to reiterate what we're doing in the next episode, we're going to take this from the Mun out to Jool and around Jool and rendezvous with our station that we have in orbit around Jool, knocking out the rendezvous 2 vessels in orbit around Jool. Then we're going to dock it, knocking that out, and transfer between the vessels, knocking that out. Then we're going to take it, after we dock up with it, out to Tylo. And here in a moment, after the tracking station loads up, we can double check our contracts for Tylo. But we're primarily after the main contract, which is orbit Tylo and return to Kerbin from orbit at Tylo. Now once we get that station, which is down here, once we get the KSS-3 and have it docked up with that vessel, we're going to tow it over to Tylo, which is over here. And once we are in the orbit of Tylo, we're going to leave that station there, mess around with our orbit a little bit, then rendezvous back up with it, so we can knock out the rendezvous, dock, and transfer between vessels in orbit around Tylo. And then we'll come home, because Tylo is nothing to play around with. It requires a lot of Delta V to do anything around Tylo. It's kind of similar to the gravity of Kerbin. If you go to the physical characteristics, it has a mass of 0.8. If we go down to Kerbin, it has a gravity of 1.0. So it's going to take a lot of Delta V to fool around Tylo. So we're going to have to be very careful once we get there to watch our Delta V. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all the debris that we have created from taking the KSS-3 out there and returning. And then after that, I'm going to wrap this up. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next episodes. Get rid of this last piece of debris. And make sure there's nothing else that we need to get rid of. See, our EVAB is still good. Kerbals are still kicking it there. Cracks me up every time Billy Bob. Everything else is looking good. Let's exit the tracking station, update our saves, and that'll be it. Now we'll see you all again next time for, I believe, episode 26, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go ahead and update that quick save. Then we'll make the main save, and that'll be it. Thank you all for watching. Sorry again for the abrupt cutoff in the last episode when the game crashed. Kind of crashed at a convenient time though, since we were already done and ready for the next mission. So, but yeah, thank you for watching. Hope this has been helping a lot of you out. And I will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.